The memorial address today will be delivered by Reverend Robert K. Myers, Church for the Holy Comfort. Dr. Myers.
The British monarch Charles II commissioned William Penn the Quaker to come to this country and to establish what he called a holy experiment, a place where religious and political freedom could flourish. And so in the charter that brought him here, he was told that the colony would be called Pennsylvania, after his father. And so in 1682, William Penn came and established the city of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. He laid out a blueprint, a design for the whole city that included 5 parks, one of which was called Southeast Square. And by 1706, that park started to bury the paupers of the city, the poor, the indigent, the transients, those who had been quarantined because of disease. That park was reserved not for play and leisure and fun, but to put away to burial those who had died. Decade after decade, the park was used for that purpose. And so it was in 1776 to 1778 that Revolutionary War soldiers that were brought to Philadelphia, the wounded and the dying, to be laid to rest there in Southeast Square as well. Thousands were brought to this park and laid to rest, some in mass graves. And so it was in 1825 that the park's name was changed from Southeast Square to Washington Square in honor of our first president and the general who led the troops who were buried in this place. When our second president, Adams, came to visit and walk across the park, he wrote to Abigail in a letter, "In my entire life, I have never felt the melancholy that I felt as I walked across that ground." An author and historian at the time, John Watson, said that those who were buried there were in fact the sleeping dust beneath. Their valor was the sleeping dust buried beneath the soil, a very sacred place. And so it was in 1954 that the Washington Square Commission decided that something needed to be done in this place. And in 1956, archaeologists exhumed in the mass graves one body of a soldier of the Revolutionary War, brought to the center of the square and reinterred in an above-ground tomb. On the top of the tomb were the words, "Beneath this stone rests a soldier of Washington's army who died so that you could have liberty." And behind that tomb is a statue by Jean-Antoine Houdon, the French sculptor, of Washington larger than life, with one arm pointed down at the tomb and the other arm pointed up as his head looks at Independence Hall. And there in that very important place in our history, the statue of our president looks to Independence Hall as a reminder, here is where independence was declared, here is where the Constitution was formed, here is where men and women gathered together with courage and faith to boldly step into their future. There's the place we look, as his other hand points down to a reminder of the sacrifice that's necessary. This unknown soldier buried in the tomb, a reminder of the thousands beneath the soil, those sleeping dusts, the valor and courage of their convictions to fight for our independence. And on this Memorial Day, we do the same, with one eye looking to liberty and freedom and the call of a new life that must be sustained again and again and again, generation after generation. We never forget the sacrifice that lies before us, the cost of keeping ourselves free. when President Ronald Reagan went to the tomb of the unknown. He said that Memorial Day has three purposes. The first purpose is to take stock of the present. The second purpose is to reflect on our past. And the third purpose is to renew ourselves for our future. And so today we too come to take stock of our present. Our nation is still at war. There is violence and hatred in our world, and we need to remain vigilant. But we always, as a people, must continue to take stock of what we're doing and what we're about. And therefore, on a day like this, we thank our Congress, our Senate, our President, the members of the Defense Department, and all the citizens of our nation who have a deep moral responsibility to take stock, to always be vigilant, to stand in the right. So today we do that. It is also important that we reflect on our past, that the cost of our liberty and the freedom that we celebrate and enjoy today comes with great sacrifice and courage. We remember the sleeping dust beneath. And finally, we renew ourselves today as a people dedicated to freedom for all. And there's much work to do in our nation and in our world. Memorial Day. It was at Harvard commencement in the Harvard Divinity School in 1789 that the speaker rose and spoke and said that memory is a performance that is nearly impossible for the human, because it's memory that brings together our past and our present, and by so doing gives us continuity from the past and dignity for our future. Today, there isn't any sleeping dust beneath this ground, but there is sleeping memory. The memory of 22 of our young men who've gone to war and fought and given their lives that we be free. Let no one leave this sacred place without renewing ourselves for our future, without reflecting upon the sacrifice of the past, and committing ourselves for taking stock in our present. May all of those that we remember here in our community, and as we look at our flag, for all of those in our nation who have died, we thank God for their sacrifice and contribution as we renew ourselves in their memory to a better and brighter hope for our future. May they rest in peace. Amen.